G'day golfers. Ever found yourself redirecting blame and making excuses after having an absolute shocker on a golf course? I know that I have. Range was closed, I was a little cold, didn't warm up, I hit it in those 3 old divots. Then we have the podcast for you. We focus on how to fundamentally own your swing. Strike it pure and consistently shoot in the 70s. Be it if you're a weekend hack, retired and playing daily, a school phenom or a tour professional. We present and discuss facts and physics pertaining to golf, trying to keep our ego and opinion at bay. We dispel myths such as keep your head down, bend your knees, or my all-time favourite, game improvement irons. So stop drinking that mythical Kool-Aid and have a sip of ours. I think you'll find it both inspiring and refreshing. I'm Scott Young, founder of Swing, PGA professional and ex-tour player. And together with physical therapist Dr. Sean Joyce, welcome to Pivot the Path. G'day golfers. Good morning. SJ, how are you, sir?
Doing well. This is episode 20.
We don't have any gear
I'm
on.
not used to having headphones on.
Yeah.
The big stand in front of us. It's kind of nice.
Episode 20, we've got new tech. The boss has got us to get new tech. So we've got wireless Rode microphones. We don't have any clunky gear.
Yeah, gives us a little more freedom and hopefully we can provide some more visual feedback.
Yeah. So we've had a good week. It's getting a little warmer. We're going to play golf. It seems really weird now. I'm not talking in a thing.
I know, it's true. And with it's going to be 60 degrees here this weekend. So this place is a little busy. People are thinking,
people are pumping.
Time to fix up the swing, which you'd hope it would just be consistent the whole off season. But, you know, new good weather is something that gets people in here.
And we had Prezzo in town yesterday. So the place was, you were bumping around a little bit. It was a disaster.
Yeah. On days like that, they right over here, he must have stayed or
he
someone
stayed at
nearby.
The Intercon. Yeah.
They barricade the building with dump trucks.
Yeah.
They just line them up and then fences outside police. It's like a bunker. You can't
I had a meeting yesterday with my attorney where we're expanding, doing some cool stuff. And I was 16 paces from the building for 20 minutes as the cavalry came through.
Oh, really? Just waiting. And he was late. And it was kind of, it was a nightmare. People were going ballistic. Yeah.
But it was kind of cool to see 1,000 trucks. I mean, there would have been 10 motorcycles. They had cyclist police. They had 3 ambulances.
Insane.
They had 2 of his presidential vehicles.
Yeah.
You don't know which one.
Yeah.
Then they had every machine gun known to man. And it was insane. There would have been 40 cars.
That's insane. It kind of shuts down the whole city. You'd think if they went incognito and just one armored vehicle, maybe no one would even know. It'd probably be safer, but hey.
Mate, news from the fairway. What have we got? Jake Knapp.
Yeah, pretty cool storyline for him.
Yeah, you knew a little bit about his storyline.
Which I can walk through. So I wasn't able to watch that much this weekend. I was moving apartments, so a little less fun.
Big news from the Joyces. You guys moved apartments.
Yeah, down in your old.
And how random is this? Of all the apartments in the city, you move into a place that we used to live in, which I find so bizarre. You're now in Tribeca, which is just overlooking the water.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Dog park.
Yeah, I can see across to Staten Island and Bayonne, where I know there's some courses over there. You can't really pick them out, but it's nice to know they're nearby. So I've got just the layout of, I think this is from 2016 until now, Jake Knapp's journey to
tell us a little bit about it.
So he played on PGA Tour Canada 2016, 2019. He went pro 2016.
Yeah.
He earned his Korn Ferry Tour card 2019.
Yeah, so kid can play. If you got Korn Ferries, he's playing pretty well.
And then he lost his Korn Ferry Tour status 2021. So then he was working security at a bar.
Unbelievable.
Which was in 2021, 2022. So just 2 years ago. Now I don't know what he's going through with that, but then he decides, all right, let's give it another crack. Went back to PGA Tour Canada, then got his Korn Ferry Tour card again. He finished 13th on Korn Ferry Tour, so secured PGA Tour card, and then his first win this weekend, and it's his 5th start.
Oh, that's so good. And we had Darius Van Drale, who won DP Tour, first win for him. So we had 2 first-time winners this week.
Yeah, pretty
which
awesome.
I think's awesome. And then we had Patty T, who's a Thai LPGA. She shot 5 under, 5 under, 6 under, 5 under to win the LPGA Tour event.
That's awesome.
So I think, again, the story that we keep coming back to is that there's some wonderful stories, and it shouldn't be about Tiger anymore.
Yeah,
there's 3 great stories.
But these are awesome ones.
Awesome stories. Like, as a bit of a journeyman, I was a journeyman who slugged it out pretty hard, never obviously got on main tour. But to hear that Mr. Knapp was running security 2 years ago, now wins a PGA Tour event, that is just so awesome. I love stories like that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You know, and you get Charlie Woods, and I really don't care about Charlie Woods. He's ranked 1300th in the world juniors, and he's making headline news everywhere. Let's focus on Darius and Patty T to shoot such regular scores and win her home Thai cool. LPGA event. I think that's just fantastic. So I'd love the golf community to switch and move from Tiger to the news stories.
Replace it with some new stuff. But it goes to show you just the inconsistency of golf, right? And so much you can control, so much you can't. So, for people, I don't think anyone should be expecting to win on PGA Tour in 2 years.
Yeah, it's such a great
you're
story.
Working on it, but go with the highs and lows and stay the course, and who knows where you end up, right?
And then, as you said, we're at episode 20, which has been flying by, and you and I both committed to this, and Rosemary and the boss just getting us up and getting us into it, and we wanted to circle back on how you found the last podcast. I've never done anything like this, and I've actually really enjoyed it. It's been good to hopefully present an honest opinion. We've had some feedback on being a little more visual and having some visual content. So we're going to mix it up with these new mics and hit some balls today and see how it goes.
Yeah, get things moving a bit. And still, if you're just listening, it's all going to come through just fine. But we want to make sure people really understand the fundamental concepts of what we're talking about. So I know sometimes it can be a little bit hard to picture in your mind if you don't see it visually. If for people that are very visual,
what's the feedback you've got or today?
It's just a few of the concepts. I've had some people ask, okay, what actually is hip internal rotation? Like, what does that look like? They say conceptually, okay, I get it. But if I'm looking at my leg here, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
Also just face to path. How do I visualize that? And I think for people who aren't in here seeing the data on the screens every day where you really start to see and connect the dots with that, it's a little bit hard to just kind of visualize the face to path. But these are the things you got to have the understanding of it to put it all together in terms of actually helping your golf game. So I think it's great if we go over a few things, show some people exactly what we're talking about.
So we're going to kind of pivot, as the podcast suggests, and we're going to just start to be a little more visual on how to explain. Today we're doing internal, external rotation. Basically the pelvis and the hips have 3 planes of motion. We're going to talk about that in a sec.
Yeah.
And we're going to really focus today on, okay, what is internal and external rotation? And to your point, you had a good mate who said the face-to-path thing, he just didn't quite get it. I know my brother, shout out Big Brother, they're in Sydney.
Yeah.
Bretto's like, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. I know we talk about this stuff all day long with people. So it feels like us, oh my gosh, we're just being repetitive. But I think it's important. You need some repetition and familiarity with these concepts so that they really feel like they make sense and you can understand.
And importantly, how it relates to golf, how it relates to improvement. Our whole high and tight is own your swing. Well, if you're not sure what internal and external rotation, I'd hesitate to say that a lot of golf pros aren't entirely sure on internal and external rotation. And maybe we can help them teach their pupils a little better and students. And we think that because it's a rotation-based sport and we want swing to grow into any sport that has rotation. I mean, you could even talk about surfing and snowboarding and hitting a tennis ball, which requires internal and external rotation.
Yeah.
I was talking recently with a customer and who had no internal rotation, which we'll get to. And I suggested that if he gets his snowboard bindings and actually rotates his foot a little left, he increases his internal rotation for his binding. And he did that and came back and said it helped him a lot. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. Big Jace.
Yeah, it applies. It's like you think of your stance for golf, similar to snowboarding. And, if you open your foot for golf and you need more, room to work that internal rotation, then why not on a snowboard?
So should we go there? So what we're going to do is just get up and get moving here with our fancy new mics. I feel like I want to hold something or have my...
Yeah, we'll get you a golf club.
There you go. And then we'll start talking internal, external rotation.
Yeah, and just walking through also verbally, an easy way to think about how if you're sitting there right now and you're sitting at a desk or even standing, you can actually take a bit of a look at your internal, external rotation. and start to put that in context of golf when we talk about face to path and low points.
Sure. So it's also happy leap year, the 29th of February, Olympics year. What does a leap year mean to you, SJ?
Yeah.
Olympics for me.
Yeah, not a whole lot to me, to be honest. I'm just thinking back to the last leap year, which was right before COVID hit. So, I mean, that was like the kickoff of, a couple less days in February, and then this time warp, boom.
It is a time warp, right? Rosie and I are walking from parking the boat in the shed today, and I said, I wonder if all these apartments are back to pre-COVID. That to me, we've noticed, obviously, the city's not quite back to where it was.
You mean in terms of capacity
just
or
capacity?
Price? Or?
No, just capacity.
We know price.
Yeah, price is great. But no, capacity. Is the city back? And we listened to a podcast, How We Built This. I love Guy Raz's podcast, How We Built This. And today we were listening to the Sonos chaps who invented Sonos.
Oh, cool.
And they were talking about 2008 financial crisis. Mm-hmm. And I was interested, and so Sonos went ballistic in COVID because everyone was at home, right? Yeah. So bizarre how that, and Guy Raz's caption is, was it luck or hard work that, is the big outlier? And luck is a bizarre thing.
Yeah, beyond your control, right?
2008, Sonos nearly got crushed because of the crisis, but then COVID, they just went stratosphere.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
One thing was fuel to the fire,
One
the
thing
other
was
was
fuel
the
to
opposite.
the fire. Anyway, happy leap year. I can't wait for the Olympics.
Yeah.
I'm just a 100-meter, 200-meter nut. I just love that 100-meter.
The track and field.
Yeah, I'm a track and field nut.
Yeah, it's good fun. Short, exciting.
I miss my Usain Bolt. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure who's going to be the new market leader. Young American guy.
Though. Yeah, I don't even know who's in the mix.
Yeah, young American kid who's about 23 is insane. And golf and tennis is in there. I'm not a massive fan of golf and tennis being in the Olympics. We got majors. I think a sport that has its 4 majors and Grand Slams, then the Olympics should be given to athletes who really sacrifice 4 years. And you sacrifice 4 years to get that gold medal.
Yeah.
The majors and the Grand Slams, that sets you up for life. If you're a tennis player and a golf player, in my opinion, you win a major or a Grand Slam, you're set for life. Mm. So I think while there's a major or a Grand Slam, you don't need the gold medal. I think it's just being a little greedy. Yeah. That's just my opinion.
I just like seeing golf on another stage. And
it's opening. It's opening
context, but
it's opening golf to a different platform. That's totally fine.
But I mean, for those guys, it's not like there's some big paycheck like they get at the majors. So it's
who won the last Olympic? Xander
Schauffele.
Yeah.
And there were a couple like Rory Sabatini. I remember was right there. A couple of names that you didn't always see on tour when it was a little bit more all in one place back then. It was quite interesting.
Yeah.
It's going to be cool to see. Do you know anything about the golf course?
No, don't know anything about it. We were not far away. So we were in Paris last year and we weren't far away from the golf course. I didn't get a chance to see it, but it'll be phenomenal. I mean, Paris, I'm not sure how many of our listeners have been there, but we love Paris. It's just the most amazing place. And Marie's obviously from not far away. It's
her mother's French.
Her mother's French.
Yeah. A different region outside of Paris, but she lived there for a long time. And so we've always gone there.
How many languages does Marie speak?
3.
And does she speak Australian? We'll have to get we'll get a 4th.
We'll work on that one.
You're speaking Australian. You, Tommy, and shout out Thomas and
it's rubbing off
Patty,
a little bit. Some of the words and verbiage and all that.
We've got 2 regulars that Sean's both improving movement and I'm helping them with their golf swings. And Tom just went ballistic last week.
Yeah.
From the inside. He's the light bulb's gone.
He's having fun now.
He's having fun, And they're Aussies, so Sean's slowly getting in Australia.
Surrounded, Yeah,
we're infecting you like the plague. So some of the feedback we've got is like, show what you do. So 3 planes of motion of the hips. What are we doing here?
So pretty straightforward if you think of your golf swing, you do all 3 of these, but it's easier to think of when you break it down into one at a time. So we've got the anterior posterior.
So what does that mean?
Is the tilt of your pelvis.
So when the pelvis moves this way.
So as you say to members in here, if you think of your belt buckle as a point of reference, if you turn that down towards the floor, that'd be anterior tilt. It makes your lower back arch more. Then the opposite is posterior tilt, where you'd be turning your belt buckle up towards the ceiling.
And anterior tilt, so you always say if you had a bucket of water, the water spills out the front. That's at address.
Yep.
But at impact, the water's actually spilling out the back as we posterior tilt.
Yes,
I love that bucket you brought.
Yeah. So still on this anterior posterior tilt for those who are actually watching, if you're, at a dress for a golf ball here, we're thinking that bucket of water analogy. The anterior tilt is when you're going to create more arch. So you'll see my lower back here arching more. I'm tilting my hips forward. Then there's the opposite of that, which is going to be tilting the hips under there.
And notice that your torso doesn't move.
Lower back. So that
just
should be
your pelvis.
Separate from the upper body. Yeah. Really important they can start to dissociate.
So that fancy word saying disassociation is when the pelvis independently moves. So the first plane of motion in your language is tilt.
Yep.
What do we got then?
Anterior posterior tilt. Then we have the lateral motion.
Okay.
So you can think a bit of weight transfer, but when you're standing and your legs are fixed, that's going to be your hips sliding to the right, sliding to the left.
Yep.
So you're going to get in one side adduction, which is the leg going more towards the midline of your body. The other side abduction, abduction.
Okay.
Which is leg going outside.
I always get those two mixed up.
They're really close. It's a bit annoying.
Adduction is away from the center line?
Towards the center line.
Towards the center line. Abduction is away from the center line.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if anyone watching here, if I'm standing here, I lift my foot up in the air. If I kick it out to the side, that's abduction, abduction, that's going away from me.
Right.
If I pull it inwards, would be adduction. Now, when you're golfing, you don't move that way. Your foot is fixed, right? So your hips are actually going to sway left and right. And you'll feel weight and pressure goes into my left leg when I shift my hips to the left.
As a right-handed golfer.
Yep. And weight is going to go into my right foot and pressure when I shift my hips to the right over that right foot.
So that's a second plane of motion. Third plane of motion.
That's the lateral. Third plane of motion is going to be your rotation, actually. This is a really big one as a rotational sport we talk about.
Sure.
Internal and external rotation. So again, if I take it away from golf here, just get my leg out in front of me. For anyone looking here in the visual, I'm just standing, knee is bent up in front of me and I'm bouncing on one leg. If I keep my knee fixed in place and bring my foot inwards, that's going to be external rotation. That's my leg is rotating outwards.
That's your right leg. So you've got your right leg bent at 90 degrees, your thighs parallel to the ground, and your right foot
inwards
is going towards your left leg.
Yes, exactly. But my leg, if I look at my thigh here, is turning out away from me. That's the external rotation part. That gets a little bit confusing.
So why don't we explain that? So you talked about this saying that the femur, the thigh, moves around the fixed pelvis.
Yes. So that's what's going on here when I'm showing it. So you can see just the pure rotation of my leg. My foot's floating in the air. Now, internal rotation is going to be the opposite. It's going to be my foot going out to the side. But my thigh is rotating inward.
Even though the foot is moving away from the body, the thigh, the femur, is rotating internally, inwards towards the body.
And so if you stand and your knee is bent 90 degrees, then your lower leg and upper leg are going to move opposite directions. So that's why my knee is turning inwards, but my foot is going out to the side. Now, when we look at this in context of golf where your feet are fixed, and you're not actually moving the legs, you're moving your hips on top of your femur, then it's going to look a little bit different. So now more in context of golf, so instead of leg in the air,
because your feet are on the ground. We call that closed chain, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the legs aren't going to actually move.
And just on this, it's why having a professional like Sean helping you with your golf game or snowboarding or tennis serve, I'm a tennis nut. Golf and tennis are so parallel, especially serving. This is a lot. So have a professional to actually help you. That's why we have.
And it can get confusing, but that's why we're going over this stuff again, make sure everyone really understands. So
internal
rotation on my left leg here. So I'm
for a right-handed golfer.
Right-handed golfer, yeah. So I'm standing here looking down at my feet. If I take my belt buckle and I turn my hips towards my left foot, that would be internal rotation on that left side. So my belt buckle is turning towards the target as a righty golfer. Now, as I do that on my left leg, belt buckle goes towards my left knee. My belt buckle is going away from my right knee. That side is externally rotating.
Gotcha.
So when you're golfing, if your feet and legs are fixed, your pelvis turns one direction, your legs are going to move opposite directions of rotation. And that's why both are very important. You want to pair good external rotation on your right leg with good internal rotation on your left to make a good swing and rotation towards target.
So that's why we talk about internal and external rotation. It is so fundamentally important for a golf swing.
Yeah, super important. And a lot of times people just don't think about these planes of motion separately, and they try and blend it all together, but that doesn't allow you to really notice if you're limited in one of them. So a lot of people may find limitations in all three, one, Maybe both sides have different limitations. It's really important to understand where those limitations lie so you can address them. And then when you put all three motions together, it all just clicks and snaps.
Yeah. So again, just to quickly go over it, we've got a pelvis that has tilt. That's one plane of motion.
Anterior, posterior, tilt.
We've got hips that turn.
Yep.
And we've got a pelvis that has lateral motion.
Yeah. And that
Super
puts
simple.
all three together. And when you swing, you're going to do all three at once.
So let's do that, eh? And we're stone cold. It's 6 a.m. here. And we've always, whenever we practice, we've always got T-squares everywhere. And then, SJ, why don't you talk us through how this moves? So when you swing a golf swing for a right-handed golfer, your right hip is internally rotating on the way back.
Yep.
And then your left hip is internally rotating on the way through.
Yeah.
And then as I internally rotate, so if I hit one here, it's stone cold. But as I turn in the backswing, my right hip internally rotates as my left hip externally.
Yep.
I then have a little bit of lateral motion. There's that second plane. And as I'm hitting, my pelvis goes from anterior tilt, bucket of water out the front.
Yep.
It goes bucket of water out the back. And then I internally rotate on my left and externally rotate. So we go, right? So I've come inside 4.6, 6 o'clock in the morning. Face is 0.1. There's face less than path. We're going to get to that. And my hips facilitated a pretty good golf swing.
Yeah. So very body-driven, hips start the downswing type of motion.
Yeah. So, and to the point of face to path, how face to path works relative to hips. And we always have T-squares and everything's alignment based in here. If this white rod, for golfers who are listening, not watching, I'm going to put a white rod on the ground, which basically is the target line. So I'm measuring a golf ball through to the white line of the screen. That's called target line. If my hips lead my torso from the top of the downswing, if my hips lead my torso, my arms trail. So the club comes from inside the target line. That's called inside path. So I've just come from the inside 4.6. My face was open, 0.1, perfect little high draw. So we've got this white rod on the ground, which is basically target line for those who are listening. Now, I've come from the inside basically 5 degrees, 4.6. I'm going to use this yellow rod and put the yellow rod slightly inside the target line to the golf ball. So for those who are watching, this yellow line represents 4.6 degrees from the inside. How does it relate to this morning? Because my hips, they went from anterior tilt to posterior tilt. That allows the pelvis to move forward. Because my left hip internally rotated, my chest didn't move. The arms trail and the club comes from inside, which is basically illustrated by this yellow line here. The yellow line represents the path. Now, the face, which has an arrow on it, was open to the target. So my face was slightly open to where I'm trying to hit it, which is this line. But it was slightly left closed to the yellow line. This is pretty technical, but it's simple once you get it. White line is the target line going from the ball to the flag. The path is another line on the ground which suggests the angle of the club coming into impact. And the club face is slightly closed to the yellow rod, but still open to the target by 0.1 of a degree. And because the face is slightly closed to the path, that ball will draw.
Yeah. Can you say that one more time, Scotty? Because it's very clear, but it's a lot of information.
Let's do it all again. Love it. So I'm trying to hit this golf ball. I've got an 8-iron in my hand and I've just hit it 166 yards. So I'm going to put a white line on the ground, which goes from golf ball to flag. That's a static line. We call that target line.
Great.
If my hips lead my torso, my arms trail. Hips turn, arms trail, club comes from the inside. We'll get to this later. But if my torso leads, as my torso spins, the club comes from outside the target line. Two paths, outside, inside. We're talking about an inside path, which is a golf method that protects your back, gets you hitting it further, gets you hitting it longer. We don't have to go into that.
Yep.
So I've just come from the inside 4.6. So I'm going to put a yellow rod on the ground. It's not 0. 0 would be on the target line. It's 5 degrees inside the target line.
So it's pointing 5 degrees to the right.
To the right of the target. So as my hips turn, My left hip internally rotates. My right hip externally rotates for a right-handed golfer.
Yep.
The club trails and comes inside the white line, the target line. That's shown here by this yellow alignment rod.
Mm-hmm.
Now, club face is relative to that. If my club face was, in this case, 4.6, the ball's going to go straight right. I'm never going to hit a green. If the club face said closed and started left of the target and then drew, moved right to left, I'd miss the green to the left.
Big hook, yeah.
Big hook. So golf occurs in a really small area, but it actually doesn't need to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. Perfect in our book is face less than path.
Yeah. So the face is angled left of that
yellow line,
or the path, which is going 5 degrees out to the right.
Yeah, correct.
So it needs to be less than 4.6 degrees.
But more or open to the target.
Exactly. So it's got to hit that little window. You've got a 4.6 degree gap.
Yeah. And the gap can be whatever you like. So if I hit another one here, we'll keep the white rod. I'm going to accentuate the yellow rod. Let's come from the inside a little more. So we can do whatever you like here. We can come from the inside. Let's come from the inside about 9 degrees. So there I've come from the inside 3.7, face 1.5. So there I came from the inside 3.7. My hips led. My face was a little more right. And so the ball started right and drew back. And we can do whatever you like. Let's, again, 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to do this again. We're going to come from the inside a lot more here. So there I've come from the inside 9.5.
Yep.
But my face still said open, 0.4. So my face is always going to be a little less than path. That ball's going to draw.
Yeah, big draw there on that one.
Face less than path. Path is just whether I lead with my hips, arms come from the inside. If I lead with my torso, arms come from the outside, or the path comes from the outside. But all the while, what you and I are selling is face less than path.
Yeah. But then the path coming through is going to produce the curve of the ball.
Yeah, correct.
So then that face less than the path is going to get that spin coming back to the left, that beautiful high draw we like to see.
Why is hip knowledge so important? It's the essence of the golf swing.
Can't have face to path without
hips.
rotation. Yeah.
So what most of our clients in here, because they're in finance, they're a little tight, they're a little outside, they're a little shoulder and torso based. It just makes golf difficult. And that's why you're so important.
Yeah. And it's, again, this is just kind of this lower body snapshot. So you're going to have then 3 planes of motion, upper body also doing some things.
Which we're going to do next week.
Need to match up. So we'll talk about that more moving forward, where we get this upper center of rotation, lower center of rotation matching up, and then some beautiful things happen.
But hopefully we explain face to path, how it relates to a golf swing when you want to just hang out with the boys and the girls and the grandparents and mum and dad. Face to path is everything basically on your built by your hips and your torso.
Yeah, exactly. Starts with the body, ends up in the club there. Well, that does it for episode 20. Thank you all for listening and changing things up a little bit here. So please feel free to reach out and let us know on our social media, our YouTube, or our website. If there's any questions you have about any of this stuff or things you'd like us to cover moving forward, we want to make sure everyone's understanding what we're talking about and putting it to action in your swing.
Yeah, look, Beauty, thanks for listening to Pivot the Path. And remember, your on-course improvement starts with the time you put into your own game so you can own your swing. Love it, SJ. See you next week. Have a good week. We're playing next week too.
Yes. Can't wait.
Can't wait.
The weather's coming around, so more to talk about. And we'll let you guys know how low Scotty goes on the course.